It was one of those dead-of-night shifts where the desert feels less like a place and more like a void. I'd pulled into this rundown fueling station off Route 95, nothing but a flickering neon sign and a couple of pumps barely holding themselves together. The whole place had that eerie quiet, the kind where you notice every little sound, the hum of the cooler inside, the distant crunch of gravel under your boots. I paid the half-asleep cashier in cash, grabbed a lukewarm coffee, and headed back to my rig. That's when I saw it. Every damn window was rolled down. And I know I locked up before going inside. My stomach dropped. I never leave those windows open, especially not in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m. I circled the truck, heart pounding, scanning the cab like something was going to jump out at me. That's when I spotted it. A small, smeared handprint on the inside of the passenger window. Muddy, like a kid had pressed their palm against the glass. But there were no kids around. No footprints outside. No sign anyone had even been near my truck. I checked the locks, still engaged. My skin crawled. I whipped out my phone and marched back inside, demanding to see the security footage. The cashier rolled his eyes, but pulled it up. Nothing. No one came near my truck the entire time. But just as the video ended, something in the shadows behind the pumps shifted. Like whatever was didn't want to be seen, that I stood there, staring at the frozen screen, my throat tight. The cashier just shrugged and said, "Cameras glitch out here sometimes." But I knew what I saw. That shadow didn't move like a glitch. It moved like something alive, something hiding. I forced myself to walk back outside, keys clenched between my fingers like a weapon. The desert air was dead still, not even a breeze to explain the open windows. I leaned into the cab, checking under the seats, in the sleeper. Nothing. But the smell hit me then. Wet earth, like after a heavy rain. Except it hadn't rained in weeks. I slammed the windows up, locked the doors twice, and got the hell out of there. For the first few miles, I kept checking the mirrors, expecting to see, I don't even know what. A face? A kid standing in the middle of the road? But there was nothing. Just the empty highway and my own breathing. Then about 20 minutes in, my radio crackled to life, just static at first. Then a whisper so low, I almost missed it. "Don't look back." I jerked the wheel, nearly swerving off the road. The voice wasn't mine. It wasn't even human. More like something trying way too hard to sound like one dot. I killed the radio instantly, hands shaking. The cab felt colder now, like something had crept in without me noticing. I kept my eyes locked on the road, but in my peripheral vision, I swore I saw movement in the sleeper berth. Just a flicker, like someone ducking out of sight. My whole body went rigid. I'd been driving solo for this haul. There was no one back there. I thought about pulling over, but what the hell was I gonna do? Run into the desert at night? So I just drove faster, knuckles white on the wheel, praying to whatever might be listening that I'd hit sunrise soon. Then the knocking started. 3 slow, deliberate taps on the passenger window, right where that handprint had been. I didn't look, couldn't. My blood turned to ice, but I kept my eyes forward, foot pressing harder on the gas. The taps came again, louder this time, like whatever was out there was getting impatient. Out of pure instinct, I reached over and hit the door locks. The second I did, something slammed against the side of the truck hard enough to rock the cab. I screamed, couldn't help it, and for half a second, I saw it in the mirror. A pale shape, too small to be a man, too twisted to be a child. Then it was gone. The rest of that drive was a blur of panic and adrenaline. I didn't stop, not even when my fuel light came on. Every shadow outside, the truck felt alive, like it was keeping pace with me. I kept checking the mirrors, expecting to see that thing again, but there was nothing. Just the empty road and my own ragged breathing. The weirdest part? My GPS started glitching, showing me roads that didn't exist, rerouting me in circles. At one point, it displayed a single word in all caps, leave. I ripped the damn thing off the dash and threw it in the back. By the time the sun finally rose, I was a wreck. My hands were still shaking when I pulled into the next truck stop. I stumbled inside, half expecting the cashier to take one look at me and call the cops. But nobody even glanced my way. I locked myself in the bathroom and splashed water on my face, trying to convince myself it was just exhaustion. Then I saw it, in the mirror behind me, just for a second. That same small, pale figure standing in the corner of the stall. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. Nothing there, but the sink faucet turned on by itself. Water rushing out brown and thick like mud. I got out of there fast, didn't even dry my hands. Back in my truck, I sat for a minute, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. That's when I noticed the smell again. Wet earth stronger now, like something had been digging in the dirt right under my seat. I forced myself to check. Nothing. Just my own gear and a few empty coffee cups. But the floor mat was damp, and when I lifted it, my stomach dropped. There were marks underneath, like tiny fingers had dragged through the dust. Not random. They formed letters. 2 of them, over and over. And oh, I drove the rest of my route in daylight only, sleeping in crowded truck stops with all the lights on. For weeks, nothing else happened. No whispers, no shadows, no more handprints. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it until last night. I was back home, finally in my own bed, when I heard it. 3 slow knocks on my bedroom window. Same rhythm as the ones on the truck. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then my phone lit up with a notification, a missed call from an unknown number. The voicemail was just static, except for one clear whisper at the end. You should have looked back. I haven't slept since. Every time I close my eyes, I see that shape, too small, too wrong, lurking just outside my vision. The weirdest part? Yesterday, I found mud on my kitchen floor. No tracks leading to it, just a single wet patch with tiny, smeared fingerprints. I cleaned it up, but this morning it was back. And this time, there was something else, a child's toy truck, rusted and broken, sitting in the middle of the puddle. I've never owned anything like it. I threw it out, but when I got home from work, it was on my pillow. The windows were locked. The doors were bolted. That was 3 days ago. Now I keep all the lights on at night. I hear scratching at the wall sometimes, but when I look, there's nothing there. No more handprints, no more toys, just this awful feeling that something's waiting, watching. And I think it's getting closer, because last night, right before dawn, I finally saw it clearly for the first time. Not in a reflection, not in the corner of my eye. It was standing at the foot of my bed, its face pressed against the window from inside the house. The glass was fogged up from its breath. I didn't move, didn't scream. We just stared at each other, and in that moment, I understood one terrible thing. It wasn't trying to scare me. It was trying to warn me. I was driving back from a client meeting late at night, the kind of exhaustion that makes your eyes feel like sandpaper. The highway was empty, just endless asphalt and the occasional flicker of my headlights catching road signs. I pulled into one of those small, unmanned rest areas, just a gravel lot with a picnic table and trash can. Stepping out of the car, the cold air hit me like a slap, but it felt good after hours in that stale AC. I stretched, listening to the crickets and the faint rustle of trees. That's when I heard it, a baby crying. Not loud, not close, but unmistakable. A sharp, whimpering sound like it was coming from the woods just beyond the parking lot. My stomach dropped. Who the hell leaves a baby out here? I called out, hello. Nothing. The crying stopped for a second, then started again, weaker this time. I took a few steps toward the tree line, phone flashlight in hand, but the beam barely cut through the darkness. The sound seemed to move, like it was drifting farther away. After a minute of stumbling over roots and dead leaves, I stopped. This wasn't right. If there was a kid out here, why wasn't anyone else around? Why no cars, no frantic parents? A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. I turned back, suddenly eager to get the hell out of there. That's when I saw it, a Polaroid tucked under my windshield wiper. My hand shook as I pulled it free. It was me, standing right at the edge of the trees, taken from behind. Minutes ago, and there was nobody else in the frame. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat as I spun around, scanning the empty parking lot. No cars, no movement, just my own ragged breathing and the hum of the highway in the distance. The photo was crisp, the colors weirdly vibrant under the dim parking lot lights. It wasn't old. The image was too clear, too fresh. I flipped it over, half expecting some creepy message, but the back was blank. That's when I noticed something else. In the picture, my stance was off. I was standing at an angle I didn't remember taking, like someone had caught me mid-step when I wasn't even moving. I threw the photo on the passenger seat and locked the doors as soon as I got in. The baby's cries were gone now, replaced by a silence so thick it made my ears ring. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see someone or something approaching, but there was nothing, just blackness. My hands were sweating so bad the steering wheel slipped under my grip. I turned the key, and the engine roared to life, way louder than usual, like it was screaming at me to go. I peeled out of there, so fast gravel sprayed behind me. It wasn't until I hit the highway that I realized I never heard footsteps. No rustling, no twig snapping. Whoever took that picture had been close enough to touch me, and I never heard a damn thing that I drove like hell for about 20 minutes before my nerves settled enough to think straight. My phone had no service out there, But as soon as I got a bar, I thought about calling the cops. What would I even say? Someone took a creepy photo of me in the woods? It sounded insane. I kept glancing at the Polaroid on the seat, like it might move on its own. The weirdest part? My expression in the picture. I looked scared, but I hadn't been scared until after I found it. At least, I didn't think I had been. The memory of those moments was already getting fuzzy, like my brain was trying to protect me from something. When I finally pulled into a 24-hour gas station, my hands were still shaking. The clerk gave me a weird look when I came in, probably because I was pale and sweating like I'd run a marathon. I bought a coffee. I didn't want just to have an excuse to be around another living person. That's when I noticed the time on the gas station clock. According to my car's dashboard, I'd only been at that rest stop for about 15 minutes total. But the timestamp on the Polaroid, it showed I'd been standing there for nearly an hour. An hour I don't remember. An hour that couldn't have happened. I sat in my car at the gas station, staring at the Polaroid under the dim dome light. That's when I noticed the trees in the background. They looked wrong. Not just the angle, but the way they bent, like they were leaning toward me in the photo. In real life, they'd been perfectly straight. My coffee went cold, untouched, as I traced the edge of the picture with my thumb, half expecting to feel something off. The paper was slightly damp, like it had been developed recently in a hurry. I rolled down the window just to hear normal sounds, cars passing, the buzz of the gas station sign, anything to ground me back in reality. The drive home was a blur. Every shadow in my peripheral vision made me jerk the wheel. When I finally pulled into my driveway at 3 a.m., I couldn't bring myself to take the photo inside. I left it in the glove compartment like that would contain whatever was happening. But that night, I woke up to the sound of faint crying again, this time right outside my bedroom window. I froze under the covers, praying it was a dream. The digital clock read 3:33 a.m. Then I heard it, the unmistakable click-whir of a Polaroid camera snapping a picture. From inside my house that I didn't move. Couldn't move. The crying had stopped, but now there was something worse, soft, shuffling footsteps creeping down my hallway. My skin prickled like static was crawling under it. The bedroom door was slightly open, and I stared at that sliver of darkness until my eyes burned. No shadow passed. No but I felt it, something standing right outside, breathing just a little too slow, a little too deliberate. My phone was on the nightstand. I could have grabbed it, called for help. But deep down, I knew if I moved, if I made a sound, whatever was out there would know I was awake. Morning came like nothing had happened. Sunlight poured through the blinds, birds chirped, normal shit. I almost convinced myself I'd imagine it all until I went to my car that afternoon. The glove box was open. The Polaroid was gone. In its place was a new one. Me asleep in my bed, covers pulled up to my chin. The timestamp read 3:34 a.m. That's when I noticed the hand, pale, long fingers curled around the edge of my bedroom door in the photo, just barely visible in the dark. I tore it to pieces and burned them in the sink, watching the edges blacken and curl. But that night, I found another one taped to my bathroom mirror. No timestamp this time, just me, wide awake in the picture, staring at the camera with pure terror. And behind me, something blurred, leaning in close that I moved out the next day. Didn't pack, didn't explain, just left. Changed my number, got a new car, even switched jobs. For months, nothing happened. I started to think I'd escaped. Then last Tuesday, I came home to my new apartment and found a single Polaroid on the kitchen counter. No idea how it got there. The photo was of that original rest stop, empty in daylight. But in the trees, barely visible, was a shape too tall to be a person, limbs all wrong. And at the bottom, written in faint pencil, you stopped looking. I don't sleep much anymore. I keep all the lights on. And sometimes when the apartment gets too quiet, I swear I hear that same faint crying, but now it's coming from inside the walls. The weirdest part? I've never found another photo. Not yet. But my hands always smell like developing chemicals, no matter how much I wash them. And last week when I scratched my arm, I swear the skin underneath looked pixelated, like a bad Polaroid. Maybe I'm losing it, or maybe whatever's in those pictures is finally coming out. We were driving through Texas, the kind of endless stretch where the heat makes the highway shimmer like a mirage. My wife, Sarah, our 7-year-old daughter, Lily, and I had been on the road for hours when we pulled into this old gas station, the kind with flickering neon signs and a smell of gasoline and stale coffee. Lily was bouncing off the walls like kids do after being cooped up in a car, so we let her wander a little while Sarah and I grabbed snacks. I remember the hum of the refrigerators, the creak of the floorboards under my boots, and the way the clerk barely looked up from his magazine when we walked in. Everything felt normal, until it wasn't that I turned my back for maybe 30 seconds to pick out a soda. And when I looked around, Lily was gone. Not by the candy aisle, not outside by the car, just gone. My stomach dropped. Sarah's voice went sharp, calling her name. And that's when we heard it, a faint shuffling sound from the back, near the maintenance closet. The door was slightly ajar, and when I yanked it open, there was Lily, standing perfectly still, her tiny hand in the grip of a man in a greasy jumpsuit. He was crouched down, whispering something in her ear, his lips moving fast, like he was reciting something. Lily's eyes were wide, but she wasn't crying. She wasn't even pulling away. The second the man saw me, he dropped Lily's hand like it burned him. His face was blank. No guilt, no surprise, nothing. Just this hollow stare that made my skin crawl. I grabbed Lily and pulled her behind me, my heart slamming so hard I could feel in my throat. The guy didn't move, didn't speak. Just stayed crouched there, watching us with these dead, unblinking eyes. I yelled for the clerk, my voice way louder than I meant it to be, but the guy behind the counter just shrugged like he had no idea what I was freaking out about. Sarah was already dialing 911 when a man finally stood up. He was taller than I expected, his movements weirdly smooth, like he wasn't entirely solid. And then, he just walked past us. Not running, not even hurrying, just strolled right out the door like nothing had happened. I chased after him, but by the time I got outside, he was gone. No car pulling away, no footsteps, nothing. The parking lot was empty except for our SUV and a couple of rusted out trucks. The heat hit me like a wall, and for a second, I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. But Lily was still trembling beside me, her fingers clutching my shirt. Back inside, the clerk acted like we were crazy. "Ain't nobody work here in a jumpsuit," he said. Chewing on a toothpick like this was just some annoying interruption. Sarah demanded to see security footage, but he just laughed and said the cameras hadn't worked in years. Lily wouldn't talk, just kept staring at the closet door, her lower lip quivering. I checked her arms, her neck, like maybe the guy left marks, but there was nothing. Nothing except this awful feeling crawling up my spine, like we just stepped into something we weren't supposed to see. The cops showed up 20 minutes later, bored and skeptical. They took a statement, glanced around the gas station, and basically told us the guy was probably just some drifter who wandered in. But then one of them asked Lily what the man whispered to her. Her voice was so small, I almost didn't hear it. He said, "I'm next." The cop chuckled like it was a bad joke, but my blood turned to ice. Sarah's face went white. Before I could ask more, Lily clammed up again, like she'd already said too much that we got the hell out of there fast, tires screeching as I pulled back onto the highway. Sarah kept glancing back at the gas station like she expected to see the man standing in the middle of the road, watching us leave. Lily fell asleep almost immediately, her head lolling against the car seat, but her fingers kept twitching like she was still trying to pull away from something. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights tailing us, but the road stayed empty. The whole thing felt surreal, like we'd slipped into some other version of the world for those few minutes and barely made it back. Hours later, at a motel near Dallas, Lily finally spoke again. She sat straight up in bed and said, clear as day, he wasn't a man. Sarah and I froze. Before we could ask what she meant, she curled back under the covers and went silent. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the motel AC, every car passing outside, sent my pulse racing. I kept thinking about the way the guy moved, too smooth, too quiet. And his eyes, they weren't just empty, they were wrong. Like something was looking out from behind them, something that didn't belong. The next morning, we tried to act normal, like maybe if we pretended it never happened, it would just go away. But Lily wasn't the same. She'd stare at nothing for minutes at a time, her expression blank, like she was listening to something we couldn't hear. Once in a diner, she grabbed my wrist out of nowhere and whispered, "He's still looking." Her fingers were freezing, even in the Texas heat. Sarah wanted to call a child psychologist, but I knew it wasn't that simple. This wasn't trauma. This was something else that by the time we got home. The worst part was that nothing else happened. No calls, no sightings, no creepy jumpsuit guy lurking in our neighborhood. Just silence. Lily slowly went back to her usual self, laughing at cartoons and begging for ice cream like before. But sometimes, late at night, I catch her standing at her bedroom window, staring into the dark like she was waiting for someone. And once, just once, I swear I saw a shadow move across the street, too tall and too still to be human. But when I blinked, it was gone. We never reported it again. What would we even say? The cops already thought we were overreacting, and without proof, it just sounded like some paranoid parent's delusion. But Sarah and I still don't talk about it much. When we do, it's in hushed voices after Lily's asleep, like saying it out loud might summon whatever that thing was back into our lives. The gas station's still there, though. I looked it up online once. Reviews called it sketchy and straight out of a horror movie, but no one mentioned a man in a jumpsuit. No one, but us. It's been years now. Lily doesn't remember a thing. She laughs when we bring up the road trip, says all she remembers is the boring car ride. Part of me wants to believe her. The other part wonders if whatever that thing was just let her go, or if it's still waiting. Sometimes when I'm alone in the house at night, I'll hear a whisper, just a trick of the wind, probably. But I always freeze. And for a second, just a second, I swear it sounds like two words hissed in a voice that isn't human. You're next.